Well, hello and welcome to Hammer Environmental. My name is Greg Hammer, where we are focused on helping people make wise land use decisions. Today, I want to talk to you about forest soils and the best way to protect them. There is a moment in we'll call it the life of a soil, where it is very, very vulnerable. And that moment is during the timber harvest. When you think about a timber harvest, and I literally have seen hundreds and hundreds of different sites. And I've seen sites that are well done, and I have seen some disasters. And what I want to help you do is avoid any disasters during that timber harvest. If you think about that process, it really is it's a violent process when harvest equipment comes through and skidders are traveling across the trails and equipment is moving back and forth. There's a lot of activity that takes place on that forest. And if it's not managed properly, it can do permanent damage to the soil that will impact the ability of that soil to produce a good crop of trees in the future. So let's talk about that. So, what's the most important characteristic in the soil that helps to determine whether or not you're going to have a successful harvest? Well, the answer is soil moisture. And that is because the soil moisture, the amount of water that's in the soil, impacts the ability of the soil to have the effectiveness of holding equipment. It gives it strength when it's drier, generally speaking, and when it's wet, it can be a big problem. So it's good to know if you have wet soils, and it's good to know what time of the year as the wettest season in your particular area. Because if this happens, if there's a negative impact, if there's a negative process during that timber harvest, you're going to get compaction and rutting and displacement and puddling. And all of those things that occur impact the properties of the soil, like structure, how the soil is put together. It impacts the porosity of the soil, the water holding capacity, the microbial activity, the root penetration. There's so many properties that can be negatively impacted if it's not managed during at the right time. And all of this increases erosion if it's not done right. It can also change the chemistry of the soil. I have seen situations where there's a soil that was it was an oxic soil. So what I'm saying is that generally speaking, most parts of the year it had oxygen in the environment. It had a fluctuating water table, but generally speaking, there was oxygen in that environment. But because of the compaction and the rutting that took place on these particular tracts of land, it completely changed the chemistry from oxic to anoxic. And when you go to an anaerobic condition, it changes all of the life cycles that occur from the microbial level to the plants and the animals and the things that live in the soil. And generally speaking, that's a negative impact. You don't want to go into an anaerobic condition. I've also seen structure of the soil where you have a nice granular and blocky structure. And then after the timber harvest, you end up with massive structure and you end up with platy structure. And what that does is it restricts the ability of the next crop to get established and then to be successful when it does grow. So here's the two most important things for you to think about when you're going through a timber harvest and how to protect your forest soils. Number one is know your land. Know where the problems might be. Know what time of year those problems might occur. If you have questions about that, that's one of the things that we can do here at Hammer Environmental is we can help identify those places where the soil could be vulnerable during a wet season. And we can help identify when that wet season is. And also the second most important thing, or maybe even tied with the first one, it's all about timing. Know when to start and know when to stop. And as the landowner, it's your responsibility to protect your land to ensure that that next crop of trees is going to be successful. So have the knowledge and have the authority to make those decisions. Well, I hope that was helpful. If you have questions, just contact us here and we'll be glad to give you help. Thank you. Take care.